deed. You're buying the building and 3.5 acres. All right, sell the building right there to give $35,000. Yeah, 35 for right there and 35 for right there and 35,000 for right there to give $30,000. Yeah, 30,000 for right there and $30,000 right there and give $30,000 for right there and give 25. Yeah, 25,000 for right there and 25. What about 25 for right there and 25? They'll give $20,000.
They're going to start it.
You're going to start it, folks, and it is going to sell. They'll give $10,000. Yep, 10,000 down, 15, but 10 down, 15, but 10 down, 15 down, 20, 15 down, 20. I'll be 15 down, 20, 15 down.
The arched windows and all of that stuff that makes it look like a church, except it's not very
After more than a century, Wright Union Church in Wright, Iowa, just southeast of Oskaloosa, closed its doors and put the church up for auction.
Yeah, there's some more. There's some more on the other side.
One of the last members of the church is 71-year-old Larry Lindsley. He's a lifetime member and is doing what he can to save the unique history of his church. A church that was formed from 3 different denominations that once had a church in Wright, a Methodist, Presbyterian, and Quaker.
That was the understanding that they, from 3 different denominations, would come together, and it would be a non-denominational, so-called Union Church.
Its first service was held on December 29, 1895. During this time, the town of Wright was a thriving community.
There was an elevator, there was a lumber yard, there was a hotel. My father can remember, or could remember, when Wright had a baseball team.
Wright also had a depot with trains coming through every afternoon, a drugstore, and a general store. But that all changed with time, and an estimated population of 100 residents began to decline.
But of course, when, you know, Henry Ford put everybody in a Model T, well, you could go, and so people started going, and little towns like Wright just ceased to exist, basically.
In the late 40s, Wright built a schoolhouse.
And the original school building was put up here about 47 or 48. And in the era of one-room schoolhouses, this was a pretty good little school. It was a 2-room schoolhouse, 2 teachers.
Bill Fisher graduated from a 2-room schoolhouse called Unsecker Memorial School. The school was named after Daniel Unsecker. He was one of the first settlers in the area, and it was his land that was donated to build the school.
Grew up in this town. Since we're rolling again, Ralph and I graduated from 8th grade here. He's the handsome dog here. Not you, John. Got that on tape, didn't I? And heard about this and wouldn't miss it for anything. Went to school here. Lived about 200 feet from here as a kid. How good a lens you got on that camera?
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 10 after.
Hold on.
I bid 19,000 right over there, and now 20.
There's a picture of us in 1956. That's Ralph. That's me. That's Tony Canute. Cute little rascal, isn't she? And Ronnie Bridges. Beautiful. It's the best looking class ever to graduate from here.
The school was then closed after redistricting in the 60s and donated to the church.
Simply as somebody to hold the land, hold the property, it was given to the church. And it was used, the original school building was used as a community center.
The building was used by the church and the community until the summer of 1984. That's when disaster struck. June 7, 1984, the Wright Union Church was destroyed by a tornado that swept through the town of about 75 residents. Fortunately, all survived the disaster.
About any story that you've heard about tornadoes, somebody here probably saw it. There was a big old tree down west of Wright down here that had the straws drawn into it, you know, like you hear that story. But I lost an old cattle shed and a machine shed here in Wright. And then where I was at, we lost 2 grain bins and a machine shed over there. It was substantial.
The state of Iowa set a record with 26 tornado sightings in the state that same day the tornado swept through Wright, Iowa. David Barner was a student pastor from Bernard College preaching at Wright Union Church in the years prior to the 1984 tornado, and he was there to help with the cleanup. Today, Barner is a pastor at the Evangelical Church in Oskaloosa, In his office hangs an offering plate that survived the tornado.
There used to be a brass cross that hung behind the pulpit on the wall, and it was stuck straight up in the front yard, and then the other offering plate was folded in half and was laying by it, and then this one was leaning up against it.
You know who that is?
Governor Terry Branstad was also on site evaluating the damage done to Wright.
Out here in the Red Cross served between, I think, 750 lunches, a couple of 3 days to people that were working out here, cleaning up, helping. And you'd have people that would come up and say, "You had a church here. We think there ought to be a church here. We want to help you out. We want to give you some money to build a church." Well, it says, starting over, Wright residents rebuild church. Larry Lindsley, left treasurer of the Union Church of Wright, works on papers for a contribution from the Southern Baptist Disaster Fund with its Oskaloosa representative, the Reverend George Kepper. And when we built this building after the tornado, and I don't know, it wasn't a lot of money in today's terms, but I think we probably had 75,000, something like that, in the building, the construction project. And it was clear and free when we were done. We never had any indebtedness against it whatsoever.
By September of 1985, Wright Union Church had a new home built on the foundation of the old schoolhouse.
What we did was come back after the tornado and rebuild this building on the footings that were here of the original schoolhouse.
But over the years, the congregation of Wright Union Church decreased into single digits on Sunday mornings, resulting in one of the reasons for the sale of the church. The closing of the local seminary school, Vernard College, in 2008 also played a part. Students from Vernard served as pastors at Wright since the early 70s.
Well, Vernard closed, about 3 years ago, I guess. And so you can go back probably 30 years beyond that we were involved in programs with Vernard.
God bless those people at Wright, because they heard some of the worst sermons that were ever put on paper. I was just brand new and just getting started. And they let me practice. They let me learn how to do what I do there. And I pastored there for almost a year before I actually took the class that teaches you how to write sermons.
At one time, we actually felt and believed quite strongly that that was kind of a mission of the church, an opportunity for them to come out, opportunity for them to preach, learn how to preach, particularly learn how to work with people.
The Wright folk taught me that being a pastor is loving people and being a part of that community. They used to say, when I was there, that I was the right pastor for the right people in the right town at the right time. And it was a joy to be their pastor. I still have fond memories.
In a CRI Weekly News interview from November of 2008, Vernard Vice President Dr. Robert Bagley explained why Vernard closed after 98 years.
It's a combination of finance and low enrollment, and it's been coming for a long period. And finally got to the point where it was just obvious this is what had to happen.
Enrollment when the college closed totaled around 80 students. Pastor Barner said that the college closing also resulted in a 25% drop in his congregation at the Evangelical Church. With Vernard closed, Wright Union Church was left with limited resources for pastors and even worship music.
Vernard, in his heyday, had a very good musical program. And we had a lot of good musical people from Vernard that would come out here and fill the services, if you will. But these guys would come out here and they'd stumble along and almost be able to preach an intelligent sermon in 2 or 3 years and get pretty good and graduate, and then we start all over again, see?
And flooding was yet another reason for the sale and closing of Wright Union Church.
And I suppose last summer in August, when we had the flood out here, if you will, the water, and so much water damage and so on, that was kind of the last straw that broke the camel's back, really.
Wright Union Church held its last service in October of 2010. Remaining members of the church have gone elsewhere for worship.
Yeah, most of the people here have scattered to other places, and that gets to be kind of a situation. Some of the people that I, talked to since that have been here and looked around and, well, they do something a little different, and we don't like this, and so on. I've been going to the Faith Church there in University Park the last, basically since October, since we closed out here.
February 5th, 2011 marked the end of an era for the Wright Union Church.
Sold it $19,000.
The church and the 3.5-acre property was sold for $19,000 to a couple from Oskaloosa. The couple declined an on-camera interview for this piece, but said they plan on converting the building into a home. The pews, paintings, piano, pots and pans, everything but the memories and artifacts lasting more than a century sold at the auction, bringing the total to $25,000. The money will go into a trust fund to continue support of the missionary works Wright Union Church has supported over the years, locally, in California, Virginia, and Panama. All the artifacts and photos from Wright Union Church will be preserved at the Nelson Pioneer Farm, just northeast of Oskaloosa.